fellow Toastmasters. We all remember the 67-day war. Some of us, David, and I'm not sure who else, had lived through it. David and myself. We've all heard about it. We've all heard many stories about it. I was a young girl during the 6-day war. I was in South Africa, and I wanted to be in Israel. As a younger person, I was never terribly Zionistic, but when the 6-day war, and I can actually remember where I was when we heard the news. I was teaching dancing, okay, and I wanted to come to Israel. And in those days, we used to listen to our parents, and my father said, "No, you are not going to Israel." Okay. And in those days, we listened to our parents, and I didn't go. But 8 months later, I collected all my money, and I left South Africa. I did many travels, and eventually I landed up in Israel. On a kibbutz, in the center of the country, which during the war, if the Arabs had crossed that little space between Tulkarem and Netanya, we would have lost the war because it's a very narrow strip. And I happened to be on a kibbutz which was put in the middle of that area. I was on an ulpan where nobody else spoke English except the ulpaniks. Okay, so we learned Hebrew with the kibbutzniks, and we spoke English at home. And the ulpaniks took us on various tiulim. We went to Jerusalem many times, we went to Eilat, we went up north to Haifa. And this particular, I worked in the lul with the chickens. And we were given specialized training. Not all the volunteers went to work with the chickens. My boss's name was David, commonly called Doobie, because he was short and round, and he looked after us. There was an American, Dutch girl, myself, and another Israeli, a couple of Israelis who worked there. And we decided, the kibbutz took us to Jerusalem. And after Jerusalem, we were allowed to tour on our own. Remember in those days, in 1968, we used to have long hair and short skirts. I was unmarried, I was a young girl, long hair and short skirts. Olga and myself, the Dutch girl and myself, we decided we were going to visit Doobie. Doobie was on Miluim, and we were going to visit him on the Golan Heights. Okay, so the two of us got out of Jerusalem on the Jericho Road. 1968 on the Jericho Road. Wasn't too kosher, but the two of us are brave. And the car stops, and I turn around and look, there's some soldiers standing there. And the soldiers go like this. I said to Olga, "Get out the car." She gets out the car. I speak to the soldiers, and they say, "It was an Arab car." Okay, little did we know that you don't get into an Arab car. So how are we going to get to the base? I don't know if people can still get on bases nowadays, but then we could. We then got lifts with the soldiers. We get to the base, no problem. We find Doobie, and he says, "Hang on a second, there's a convoy coming through. You have to go into the room, shut the door, shut the curtains, and wait till the convoy has passed." Okay, so we did this. Finished that, we slept over the next morning. Now, how are we going to get back to civilization? We're in the middle of the Golan. We don't have transport. How are we going to get back to civilization? There's an ambulance, which is traveling back to Jerusalem. So the two of us get on the ambulance, We go back to Jerusalem. We then go from Jerusalem, we catch the bus, we go back to the kibbutz. A couple of months later, I'm now leaving Israel. The kibbutz didn't know this, but I'd been there a year and I had to go further. I had to finish my travels. I decide I'm going traveling again. So what do? I decide I've been to Eilat, been to Jerusalem, I've been to Netanya, I've been to Haifa. I'm going to Metula. Now Metula is the northernmost point of Israel. Stump, I want to go to Metula. I get on the bus, I start traveling, and I travel, and I travel, and I travel, and eventually I get to Metula, and I get out the bus. Nothing much there in Metula. Some years ago there was even less. What do? I start walking. There's a road. I start walking. And on the side of the road there is a fence. And I walk, and I walk. I'm all by myself, and I walk, and I walk. And eventually the soldiers in their little van, whatever they are, comes past me, and I could speak Hebrew then, and they said to me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm walking." They said, "What do you mean you're walking?" "Walking, there's a road, I'm walking." And one guy says to me, "You see that hill over there?" So I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Oh, on the other side of the hill is Lebanon." I said, "Oh." And he says, "I just suggest you go home." And I turned around and I walked back. And I got on the bus and I went back home. These are stories that I never told my parents. I am not surprised that I didn't. Again, in those days we didn't have cell phones and instant messages and WhatsApp and emails. I used to write a letter once a week to my mother, and my mother would write once a week back to me. And I just kind of forgot to tell her that I got into trouble with the Israeli army. Thank you.